The desperate signal. The deep space monitoring station orbiting Pluto hummed quietly in the darkness, its massive arrays scanning the void for any sign of intelligent life. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison had been staring at the same empty screens for 6 hours when something finally changed. A pattern emerged from the cosmic background noise, mathematical and deliberate. "Director Hayes, you need to see this," Morrison called across the command center. His voice carried the tension of someone who had just witnessed something extraordinary. Director Elena Hayes floated over in the low-gravity environment, her experienced eyes immediately focusing on the data streams flowing across Morrison's workstation. After 30 years of listening to the cosmos, she had learned to distinguish between natural phenomena and artificial signals. This was definitely artificial. "How long has this been transmitting?" Hayes asked, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface to analyze the signal structure. "Based on the degradation pattern, at least 18 months, maybe longer," Morrison replied. "Director, this isn't just any signal. It's a mathematical progression that translates to basic concepts they're trying to communicate." Hayes felt her heart rate increase. In all her years of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, she had never encountered anything like this. The signal was complex, layered with meaning that suggested a desperate urgency. "Can you decode the full message?" she asked. Morrison worked for another hour, running the signal through every translation protocol they had developed. When the final translation appeared on his screen, both humans stared in stunned silence. "To any civilization receiving this transmission, this is the Zilani Republic. Our star system faces imminent destruction from an approaching asteroid field. We have contacted 23 spacefaring civilizations requesting assistance. None have responded. Our defensive capabilities are insufficient. Time remaining, approximately 4 Earth months. We do not wish to die alone in the darkness. If anyone hears this, please acknowledge that we existed." The message repeated endlessly, a lonely voice crying out across the vastness of space. Hayes immediately contacted Earth's United Colonial Defense Force headquarters. Within hours, the discovery had reached the highest levels of human government. In a secure conference room beneath the Swiss Alps, 12 representatives from Earth's major nations gathered around a circular table to discuss humanity's response. "We're talking about a civilization we've never met, in a star system 47 light-years away," said Defense Secretary Williams, his weathered face showing skepticism. "We don't even know if they're telling the truth." "The mathematical precision of their distress call suggests advanced scientific capability," countered Dr. Angela Reeves, Earth's leading xenobiologist. "This isn't a primitive hoax. These beings are facing extinction." President Martinez leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "What troubles me most is that 23 civilizations ignored their plea for help. What does that say about the galaxy we're trying to join?" Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's newest deep space fleet, spoke up from her position at the table. "With respect, Madam President, what those other civilizations chose to do is irrelevant. The question is, what we choose to do." "Admiral, Chen is right," said Ambassador Kira Thorne, Earth's chief diplomatic officer. "This is about who we are as a species. Do we help those in need, or do we turn away because it's inconvenient?" Secretary Williams shook his head. "The distance alone makes this nearly impossible. Even with our fastest ships, it would take months to reach them. By the time we arrive, it might be too late." Dr. Marcus Webb, the Defense Force's chief strategic analyst, had been quietly reviewing data on his portable display. He looked up with a grim expression. "Actually, if we left within the next 2 weeks, we could reach the Zilani system with approximately 3 weeks to spare. It would require committing our entire deep space fleet." "The entire fleet?" President Martinez asked. "That would leave Earth's outer colonies completely undefended." "Sometimes," Admiral Chen said quietly, "you have to risk everything to do what's right. If we succeed, we save an entire civilization. If we fail, at least we tried." The debate continued for hours, but gradually the room's sentiment shifted. These humans, descendants of a species that had spent millennia helping strangers in times of crisis, found they could not turn away from a plea for help, no matter how distant or dangerous. President Martinez called for a final vote. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would answer the Zalani distress call. 2 weeks later, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UCDF Resilience, humanity's most advanced starship. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for humanity's first interstellar rescue mission. Through the massive viewports, she could see the rest of the fleet: 8 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 6 specialized engineering vessels, all equipped with humanity's most advanced technology. "Admiral, all ships report ready for departure," announced Captain Torres, her second in command. Chen nodded, thinking about the weight of the moment. Humanity was about to take its first major step onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or traitors, but as rescuers. "Fleet communications, open a channel to all ships," she ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." Chen's voice carried across the fleet, with calm authority. "Attention all vessels. Today we begin a journey that will define humanity's place in the galaxy. 47 light-years away, an entire civilization faces extinction. They called out to the stars for help, and we are going to answer. We don't know what we'll find when we arrive, but we know why we're going. Because when someone calls for help, humans respond." "Initiating faster-than-light sequence," announced the navigation officer. The stars stretched into lines of light as the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, beginning their race against time to save a people they had never met. 6 weeks later, the fleet emerged at the edge of the Zalani system. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display with growing concern. The asteroid field was massive, stretching across millions of kilometers and heading directly toward the inhabited planets. Each rock was the size of a small moon, and there were thousands of them. "My God," whispered Dr. Webb, staring at the sensor readings. "How do you stop something like that?" Before anyone could answer, the communications officer looked up from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the third planet. They know we're here." "On screen," Chen ordered. The main display flickered, then showed the interior of what appeared to be an alien command center. The being facing them was tall and graceful, with silver-blue skin and large expressive eyes that seemed to hold both hope and disbelief. "I am High Counselor HFY of the Zalani Republic," the alien said, his voice melodic and strangely soothing. "We detected your arrival, but we dare not believe what our sensors tell us. Are you truly here to help us?" Admiral Chen stepped forward. "High Counselor, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth United Colonial Defense Force. We received your distress call and came as quickly as we could. We're here to help." HFY's large eyes seemed to shimmer with moisture. "Forgive my disbelief, Admiral Chen. In all our communications with other civilizations, none showed any interest in our survival. Why would your people risk so much for strangers?" Chen felt the eyes of her bridge crew upon her as she considered the question. "How do you explain to an alien that helping others is simply what humans do?" "Because it's the right thing to do," she said finally. "Where we come from, when someone calls for help, you answer. It's that simple." The Zalani counselor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with wonder. "Admiral, we have studied the approach vector and composition of the asteroid field for months. Our best scientists conclude that deflecting objects of this size and number is impossible with any known technology. We face certain extinction in 19 of your Earth days." Dr. Webb stepped beside the Admiral. "High Counselor, we'd like to review all your data and conduct our own analysis. Humans have a tendency to find solutions where others see only problems." HFY transmitted their complete scientific analysis to the human fleet. As the data flowed across their screens, the magnitude of the challenge became clear. The asteroids were not only massive but also moving at incredible velocity. Any attempt to destroy them would create debris clouds that might be even more dangerous. "Conventional weapons are useless," reported the fleet's chief engineer. "Even our most powerful missiles would barely scratch these things." But Admiral, Chen had not brought humanity's best strategic mind along for nothing. Dr. Webb stared at the data for hours, his brilliant mind working through possibilities that others had dismissed as impossible. "Admiral," he said finally, his voice carrying a note of excitement, "I think I have an idea. It's dangerous, probably crazy, but it might work." Chen looked at the countdown timer showing 18 days remaining. Crazy ideas are exactly what we need right now, Doctor. What do you have in mind? Webb called up. A three-dimensional projection of the asteroid field. We can't stop them or destroy them, but we might be able to redirect them. If we place shaped charges at precise points on the largest asteroids and detonate them in sequence, we can alter their trajectory, like a controlled avalanche. The gravitational interactions alone would be incredibly complex, said the navigation officer. Which is why we need to act fast and coordinate perfectly, Webb replied. But if we can deflect just the right asteroids, their gravity will pull the others off course. Instead of hitting the Zilani planets, the entire field will curve around the system. Admiral Chen studied the projection, her mind racing through the implications. How close would our ships need to get to place these charges? Very close, Webb admitted. And the timing has to be perfect. If we're off by even a few seconds, we could make things worse. Chen looked around at her bridge crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had brought them 47 light years to help strangers. Prepare the mission briefing. We're going to need every ship working in perfect coordination. As the human fleet prepared for the most dangerous mission in their history, High Counselor HFY watched from his command center with a mixture of hope and amazement. Never in Zilani history had they encountered beings willing to risk everything for people they had never met. These humans, he said to his science director Valaris, they are unlike any species we have studied. They speak of helping others, as if it were as natural as breathing. Valaris nodded, her silver-blue features thoughtful. Perhaps that is why they are the ones who answered our call, while others remained silent. They possess something that advanced technology cannot provide: compassion. Against all odds, the human fleet spread across the asteroid field like a coordinated dance of death and determination. Each ship had been assigned specific targets, their crews working with precision that would have been impossible without months of training and years of experience in dangerous situations. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Resilience, watching as her ships maneuvered between asteroids the size of mountains. The communications channels buzzed with constant updates as engineering teams placed shaped charges on the massive rocks, each placement calculated to alter the trajectory of thousands of other asteroids through gravitational cascade effects. Demolition. Team Alpha reports charges placed on asteroid cluster 7, announced the communications officer. Team Beta is approaching cluster 12. Dr. Webb stood beside a holographic projection that showed the entire asteroid field, with projected trajectory changes updating in real time as each charge was placed. Admiral, we're running ahead of schedule. If the gravitational calculations are correct, we should be able to begin the detonation sequence in 6 hours. What's our margin for error? Chen asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. Essentially 0, Webb replied honestly. If any ship is more than 30 seconds late with their detonation, the cascade effect won't work. The asteroids will continue on their current path. Captain Torres looked up from the tactical display. Admiral, the Zilani High Counselor is requesting a private communication channel. Put him through to my ready room, Chen ordered. In the privacy of her personal quarters, Admiral Chen faced the alien leader whose people she was risking everything to save. HFY's expression was troubled, his large eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and guilt. Admiral Chen, I have been monitoring your mission progress. Your people are risking their lives in ways that seem impossible. 3 of your ships have already reported minor damage from asteroid debris. Chen nodded. The USS Portland took some hull damage when an asteroid fragment punctured their forward section, but they're still operational and on mission. That is precisely what concerns me, HFY said. Admiral, you have already done more for my people than we had any right to expect. If you lose ships, if your people die trying to save us, how can we live with that knowledge? Chen considered the alien's words carefully. She had been asked similar questions by her own crew, and her answer remained the same. High Counselor, let me tell you something about humans. We have a saying. No one gets left behind. It doesn't matter if we've known you for years or just met you. When someone needs help, we help. That's not going to change because it's dangerous. HFY was quiet for a long moment, Your species is remarkable, Admiral. In all our studies of galactic civilizations, we have never encountered anything like human compassion. Maybe that's why we were the ones who answered your call, Chen replied. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Torres. Admiral, we have a problem. The USS Manchester reports that asteroid cluster 15 is breaking apart. The gravitational stress is causing premature fragmentation. Chen rushed back to the bridge, where chaos was beginning to unfold on the tactical display. Asteroid cluster 15, one of the key targets in their deflection plan, was fragmenting into dozens of smaller pieces, each following slightly different trajectories. This changes everything, Dr. Webb said, his face pale as he ran new calculations. Without cluster 15 intact, we can't create the gravitational cascade we need. The deflection won't work. Options? Chen demanded. We need someone to get in close and manually detonate charges on each fragment as it breaks away. It would require a ship to fly directly into the fragmentation field. The bridge fell silent as everyone understood the implications. Flying into a field of fragmenting asteroids was essentially a suicide mission. I'll take the Manchester in, said Captain Maria Santos over the communications channel. My ship is already the closest to Cluster 15. Negative, Captain Santos, Chen replied immediately. Find another solution. Admiral, with respect, there isn't another solution. My crew and I knew the risks when we signed up for this mission. We didn't come out here to play it safe. Dr. Webb looked up from his calculations. Admiral, Captain Santos is right. Someone has to get in there, or this entire operation fails. And if it fails, he didn't need to finish. If the operation failed, the Zilani civilization would be extinct in 12 days. Admiral Chen closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command in a way she never had before. When she opened them, her voice was steady and clear. Captain Santos, you are authorized to proceed. All other ships maintain position and prepare for synchronized detonation on my signal. The USS Manchester, a heavy cruiser designed for deep space exploration, began its approach to the fragmenting asteroid cluster. On the bridge of the Resilience, Chen watched as the ship disappeared into a cloud of tumbling rock and debris. Manchester to Fleet Command, came Santos's voice over the communications channel, static making her words difficult to understand. Beginning placement of charges on Fragmentation Alpha. Debris is heavy, but we're managing. For the next hour, the Manchester played a deadly game of three-dimensional chess with fragments of rock that could crush the ship in an instant. Captain Santos and her crew worked with precision born of desperation, placing charges on fragment after fragment as they tumbled through space. Admiral, Santos reported, her voice now clearly strained. We've placed charges on 80% of the fragments, but our hull is compromised and we're venting atmosphere from sections 4 through 7. Captain, abort the mission and withdraw immediately, Chen ordered. Negative, Admiral. We're almost finished. Just a few more charges and we can make this work. The communication channel filled with static, then cleared just enough for Santos's final transmission. Admiral, charges are placed and armed. Manchester is, we're not going to make it out of the debris field. Initiating automated detonation sequence. Tell the Zilani we were honored to help. The USS Manchester exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking Captain Santos and her crew of 87 with her. But her sacrifice was not in vain. The charges she had placed detonated in perfect sequence, sending the asteroid fragments spinning away from their collision course with the Zilani worlds. Across the fleet, the remaining ships triggered their charges simultaneously. The effect was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion across millions of kilometers of space. Massive asteroids, nudged by precisely placed explosions, began to alter their trajectories. The gravitational effects cascaded through the entire field, pulling more and more rocks away from their deadly path toward the Zilani system. Dr. Webb stared at his projections in amazement. Admiral, it's working. The cascade effect is exceeding our most optimistic projections. The entire asteroid field is curving away from the Zilani planets. On the surface of the Zilani homeworld, High Counselor Zeph-Hai watched his people's instruments confirm what seemed impossible. The death approaching their civilization for months was turning away, deflected by the courage and sacrifice of beings they had met only days before. "Admiral Chen," he transmitted to the human fleet, "our sensors confirm that the asteroid field will miss our system entirely. You have saved every life on our worlds. But the cost." Chen's voice was heavy with grief for her lost crew, but firm, with resolve. High Counselor Captain Santos and her crew died doing what humans do best, helping others. They would consider it an honor that their sacrifice saved your civilization. In the days that followed, news of humanity's intervention spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. The 23 civilizations that had ignored the Zilani distress call suddenly found themselves facing uncomfortable questions from their own populations. How had a young species with primitive technology succeeded where they had refused to try? The Regulan Confederation, the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empire, sent an ambassador to meet with Admiral Chen before the human fleet departed Zilani space. Ambassador Vextar was typical of his species, tall, emotionless, and supremely confident in the superiority of Regulan logic. He materialized on the bridge of the Resilience via holographic projection, his silver robes and cybernetic enhancements marking him as a member of the Regulan elite. "Admiral Chen, I am Ambassador Vexatar of the Regulan Confederation. We are curious about your species' actions in this matter." Chen faced the hologram with barely concealed distaste. "Curious about what, Ambassador?" "We received a distress call and responded. I understand that's a concept some civilizations find difficult to grasp." Vexatar's expression didn't change, but there was a subtle shift in his posture. The Zilani situation was a test of species fitness. By interfering, you have disrupted natural selection on a galactic scale. The resources expended on this rescue could have advanced your own civilization significantly. "Ambassador," Chen replied, her voice cold as space itself. "We don't measure advancement by how many people we let die. We measure it by how many we save." "An interesting philosophy," Vextar said, "but hardly practical for a species seeking to establish itself among the galactic powers." Dr. Webb stepped forward. "With respect, Ambassador, we're not seeking to establish ourselves among galactic powers that let entire civilizations die for the sake of convenience. We're seeking to be better than that." The conversation continued for several more minutes, but it was clear that the two species operated on fundamentally different moral frameworks. When the transmission ended, Chen felt more certain than ever that humanity had chosen the right path. High Counselor HFY approached the human fleet for a final time as they prepared to depart. "Admiral Chen, the Zilani Republic wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. But more than that, we want the galaxy to know what humans did here. We want every civilization to understand that there are beings who will answer when others call for help." "We appreciate that, High Counselor," Chen replied. "But we didn't do this for recognition. We did it because it was right." "Which is exactly why the galaxy needs to know," HFY said. "Admiral, your species has changed something fundamental today. You have shown that compassion is not weakness, that helping others is not foolishness. Other civilizations will think twice before ignoring distress calls, knowing that humans might respond instead." As the human fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Chen stood once more on her bridge, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed quite as cold and empty as they had before. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and they had done so not as conquerors or traitors, but as the species that answered when others called for help. The journey home would take weeks, and Chen knew that when they arrived, humanity would find itself changed. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer unknown. Word of their actions would spread, and other distress calls would come. And when they did, Chen thought with a small smile, humans would answer, because that's what humans do. In the months that followed, the rescue of the Zilani became legendary throughout the galaxy. Species that had never communicated with each other began to share the story of the young civilization that had risked everything to save strangers. The phrase human response entered the common galactic vocabulary, meaning to help others without expectation of reward. But perhaps most importantly, other species began to answer distress calls as well, not wanting to be seen as less compassionate than the humans. The galaxy became a slightly less cold and empty place, one rescue at a time. And in a small monitoring station orbiting Pluto, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison continued to listen to the stars, knowing now that when someone called for help, humanity would answer. The stars were no longer silent, they were full of hope.